Hello and welcome to Wander Zone, Crofton Kids Virtual Holiday Club, the first of its kind. We're really pleased to have you with us. My name is Dan and I'm part of the Crofton Kids team, and I'll be your host for these next 5 days as you watch these short films on YouTube. There's going to be one a day. This holiday club is all about the wonders of God, of science, and the natural world. Our world is a fascinating place, a place of discovery, exploration, and adventure. There are things to wander at, there are things to look at all around us, from the very small, such as insects and how our bodies work, to much larger things like countries and different planets and the whole universe. Can you remember any days that involved discovery? Perhaps you had a day that was really interesting as you learned new things about the natural world. Maybe these things were complicated, but they fascinated you. Perhaps you had a particularly interesting day at school. Was there a special lesson that your teacher had for you? Or maybe you went on a really exciting holiday, doing something fun or going somewhere interesting like the sea or up a mountain or even to another country. Or maybe you've been on a day trip doing something unusual like caving or rock climbing, or just simply visiting an interesting place. I remember when I was in year 4 going to the Natural History Museum in London, and I was really impressed with all the things that they had in the museum. I remember the big skeleton of a dinosaur, a diplodocus, that was in the entrance hall. I remember walking around it, and I remember going to the gift shop at the end and buying a toy dinosaur, an ichthyosaur, a dinosaur fish, and being fascinated by its long body and how it would have swum in the water. Maybe you've been to a museum like that. That trip for me really impacted the way I saw the world. I realized for the first time how big and exciting it really was. Now, some days can be boring, some days can be the same, but occasionally we'll have days of discovery that will take our breath away. In fact, every day could be one of those days. Living in this part of the world, near the sea, we're really blessed by what we have around us. We can enjoy nature, we can enjoy the seaside and the countryside. But we also, in these days, have the internet, where we can discover countless facts and see countless images of the natural world. It's a great time to be alive, and that's what this holiday club is about, celebrating the goodness of the natural world and the God from whom it all came. Lexi, really good to have you here.
can you tell us a bit about yourself? What's your job?
Okay, so I am a science teacher at Bay House School, near to Broome Park then. We work very closely together, the two schools. So.
Right. How long have you been a teacher?
A long time. 9 years, I think. 9.
9 years.
9 years,
wow.
Yeah.
So you've taught a lot of children.
Hundreds of children.
Lost count.
Yes, a lot.
So what is it about your job that you really love?
I love seeing the children every day, different children. I like being able to hopefully inspire them a little bit. And I like that my job's very different. Every day is different. So different children, every hour of the day. And then every year I see a new group of children and new groups of children. And yeah, I like it's busy, but I love it.
You love it. And what got you into science in the first place?
At school, I really enjoyed science. I had some good teachers. I had some sort of crazy teachers. But yeah, I loved school. I loved all of school, to be honest. But science, I liked that there was a practical bit to it. I liked that there were some written bits. Analytical. So finding out what way that they do. I really liked maths as well, so there's quite a lot of maths in science. So being able to sort of tie everything in together, was just really inspiring, I suppose. I liked it, yeah.
Brilliant. And you loved it so much, you became a teacher. Why did you become a teacher rather than just a scientist?
Well, when I was at university, we had to do some research projects, and so I spent 6 months in industry down in Gosport, and I looked at making batteries, and we did lots of research there, and I quite enjoyed it. But when 6 months was up and I went back to university to finish university, I didn't really miss it. And then I had to do another project at university, and I worked with in one of the labs there, and I did some more research, and I had to write a project on it, and it was okay. And then I thought, I haven't got much time left at university on my chemistry course, and it was, what am I going to do next? And I just thought, I don't want to be doing research because it's a bit more boring, the same thing every day. And then it didn't quite work, so we'll just change one little thing in the experiment, and then we'll do the experiment again and again and again. And I just, I didn't want to be doing that. And I remembered how much I enjoyed being at school, and that I liked working with young people. I knew what sort of skills I was good at and what I was not good at, and I thought, I think teaching could work well for me. And jumped in.
You studied a particular area of science. You studied chemistry.
Yeah.
What is it about chemistry that you particularly like, and is there something specific in chemistry that you love?
So chemistry is all about going into really what everything is made up of and how it all works together. So going in and looking at what atoms are and how some atoms are different from other atoms and why things work and react like they do, I think is really interesting, and is something that we can't see with our eyes, but is fundamental to how everything kind of works and everything's built up on. So I think trying to pass on that knowledge and understanding to the young people that I teach is really interesting, because they can sort of see how the world works.
So it's the really small stuff, the atoms, like the things we can't see.
And
really fascinating.
And energy, which is obviously linked a bit more to physics, but where does the energy come from? How can we store energy? How can we pass it on? So all of the tech that we are now kind of using and want everything to be portable. So how do batteries work? How can we make them last longer? All those sorts of things is a lot of the research bits that I did do at university that I still quite like. So energy and atoms.
That's great. And you're someone who follows God. You call yourself a Christian. Who first told you about God?
I was brought up in a Christian household, so God was there from the very beginning. Talked about, we went to church, from the word go. So it's always been a part of my life. I think discovering God for myself, probably through things like New Wine, so church camps, and youth groups. Yeah, finding out who He is sort of for myself, kind of happened then. So yeah, always just been there.
Always just been part of your life.
Yeah.
And on our holiday club, Wonder Zone, we're looking at the wonders of God, of science, and the natural world. And I'm sure you find science fascinating, you find God fascinating, and our world fascinating.
Yeah.
How do you relate your faith in God with your study of science? Do you see the two working together?
Yeah, massively. I think we live in a wonderful world. There are so many amazing things. I mean, just looking at this garden, it's beautiful, and all of that is God. God has created this wonderful world that we live in, and yet we can now, as scientists, know why this plant looks the way it does, why it's got colour in it, why it grows better in some places than other places, and the same with our bodies. I mean, they are just incredible, how they work and why they work, and when we're ill, how we can get better. And God created us, and yet we are now learning more and more ways to make improvements to our world and make things better for ourselves. So I think science, God, they work well together.
They work together.
Yeah.
Lexi, thank you so much for sharing a bit about your job and your life and your faith. It's been lovely to sit, as you say, in this lovely garden on a beautiful day. Thank you very much.
You're more than welcome.
Kids, welcome to our first science experiment of the week, day 1. I have here a bottle of Coke and 3 soft mints, 3 chewy mint sweets. I wonder if you can guess what's going to happen when I add these 3 sweets to the Coke bottle. Have a think for a moment. What reaction do you think will happen inside the Coke bottle? Let's see, shall we? Now, I'm dressed up in a lab coat and goggles for this. Jude, my camera person, is also dressed up in protective gear. I'm giving you a clue as to what might happen. We're going to take the lid off the bottle. I've taped the bottle down with sellotape to make sure it doesn't fall over. Now, hopefully, I've never done this before, but hopefully this should work. If not, I apologise. But here we go. 3 mints at the same time going into the bottle. I'm then going to take a big step back. You can probably guess now what's going to happen. You ready to count to 3? On 3. 1, 2, 3. And there you have it. One of the great things about science is the reactions, is the explosions. It's still going. Look at it, it's like a volcano. Now you can do this at home with a grown-up. It's very easy to do. If you do it inside your house, obviously you'll need a lot of kitchen roll to mop up. So what's the science behind this? Well, it's to do with a reaction called nucleation. The mints have tiny little bumps on them, which are great sites for bubbles to form, and that's the heart of the reaction. As the mint sinks to the bottom, lots of these nucleation sites are created, meaning that there's a build-up of gas in a very small space. That gas then has to go up through the hole in the bottle, and that's why we get such a mess. Oh, that was a really fun experiment to do. We're going to look at our Bible passage now, and this is a story about a young king called Solomon who asks for something special from God. One night, while Solomon was in Gibeon, the Lord God appeared to him in a dream and said, "Solomon, ask for anything you want, and I will give it to you." Solomon answered, "My father David, your servant, was honest and did what you commanded. You were always loyal to him, and you gave him a son who is now king. Lord God, I'm your servant, and you've made me king in my father's place. But I'm very young and know so little about being a leader. And now I must rule your chosen people, even though there are too many of them to count. Please make me wise and teach me the difference between right and wrong. Then I will know how to rule your people. If you don't, there is no way I could rule this great nation of yours. God said, Solomon, I'm pleased that you asked for this. You could have asked to live a long time or to be rich, or you could have asked for your enemies to be destroyed. Instead, you asked for wisdom to make right decisions. So I'll make you wiser than anyone who has ever lived or ever will live. I'll also give you what you didn't ask for. You'll be rich and respected as long as you live, and you'll be greater than any other king. If you obey me and follow my commands as your father did, I'll let you live a long time. Wow, that was a really interesting story about Solomon, this young boy who'd just been made king. And he wasn't sure how he would rule, but he asked God for wisdom. Now, God was really pleased with Solomon's choice. Solomon could have had anything in the world. He could have asked to live a long life. He could have asked to be rich. He could have asked to see all his enemies destroyed. But instead, Solomon asked for wisdom. God was so pleased with that God gave him all the other things as well: riches, a long life, and his enemies destroyed. Solomon knew that wisdom was the most important thing to have from God. Why is that? Well, we need wisdom to know God, to understand who God is, and also to understand God's world. God created the world after all. So what better thing to have than God's wisdom, God's help, in order to experience and to live in God's world? God's wisdom to us is a gift, just as it was a gift to Solomon. We can ask for wisdom as well, just like Solomon did. And that wisdom that we have from God, that gift from God, can stay with us for our lives as we learn new things about God and about his world. God shows himself through his world, through nature and through science, and he gives us the ability, he gives us his wisdom so that we can learn more about him through his world. So discovery, exploration, learning new things, they're all a gift from God. God loves it when we use wisdom, when we investigate, when we use our brains, when we use our bodies to find out more about him and about his world. So how will we use this gift of wisdom? Well, maybe one day you can ask God for wisdom. Maybe it's something you could do today even. And maybe you could be like Solomon, experiencing God's world in its fullness. Solomon, as he grew up, became a great poet, perhaps the greatest poet who ever lived. And he understood all kinds of things about the natural world. He was well known for his wisdom for many centuries to come. And he's even famous today, written about in the Bible. It's best to experience God's world with him. I've learnt that ever since I was a young boy. My mum and dad taught me about God, and they would take me to church. And it was great from such an early age to understand that God was with me as I learnt things in school about him and his world. It was great to know that I was never alone when I was on my own, because God was with me. And I remember one time when we were on a family holiday, I climbed the hill that overlooked the place where we were staying. And I remember getting to the top of that hill and looking out across this beautiful valley in the Lake District. And I just wanted to thank God for what he created, this beautiful place, this beautiful view. And I was so glad that I had someone to thank, that I knew God that God had given me his wisdom, the ability to know him, and that I knew God, the God who'd created this fantastic place, also cared about me and wanted me to experience his wonderful creation. We're going to look at the lab book now, and you can do the exercises for today. Maybe you've done them already, but I'm just going to take us through them now. So perhaps you've written your name in the front of your lab book. There are also some exercises for you to do. You can create your own ID card. You can write down some things or draw some things that you've discovered recently or that you find interesting. There's a word search that you can do. There's the Bible passage that we've just looked at about Solomon. And then there's a coding exercise and even an experiment that you could do at home. And maybe you could try that out today. So have a look at the lab book, see how far you get on with that. We're going to look at our memory verse now. Throughout this holiday week, we've got a memory verse to learn, and you may have noticed it's on the wall behind me. Let's have a look at it. It goes like this. It's from the Bible, and it's Psalm 139, verse 14. Maybe we could read it out loud together. It says, "I praise you because of the wonderful way you created me. Everything you do is amazing." Psalm 139, verse 14. Let's have another go. "I praise you because of the wonderful way you created me. Everything you do is amazing." Psalm 139, verse 14. And we're going to be looking at that every day this week. See if you can learn it off by heart. That's the end of our session. Have a breather, get a drink, and we'll see you. Thanks for watching.